We be live. Hello, Durud and Shalom. Guys, I was just on the news. I was on OAN and I think I killed it. But hopefully they give me the video so that I could share with you guys. But I think I killed. I think I did really good. But yeah, but if they give it to me, I will post it on Liberty Politics on the YouTube channel, and you guys will be able to see how I did or not. What is going on in the chat? Why are you guys are all saying, did somebody die? Just okay. I don't know what's happening. I'll pay attention closer to it once I'll start the live show. But once I go into our group discussion, I will pay attention. Maybe somebody could explain to me what's happening. But let me just get into the group, and then after that, after my hands are free, after I make the announcement and everything, then I'll pay attention to the chat and see what's happening. Okay. Yeah, I will. Let me see. What is? Oh, okay, Dolly. Okay. I see. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Fansan. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. People are saying she was an incredible human. Very sad. So sorry, guys. Dolly. Okay. Dolly died. Okay. Well, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that news. I'm sorry. People, thank you. I'm here for the candle. 80 years old. Okay. Thank you for telling me. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all those who are affected. R.I.P. Dolly. Okay. Well, thank you for letting us know. Yeah, please, guys, put a candle in the chat. Appreciate you guys for doing that. I am. Yeah, at least she lived for many years and had a good life. Javid Dolly. All right. Yeah, you guys are being very sweet. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all the messages here in the chat. Thank you for the candles. All right, guys. I do have to talk about what's happening. I want to jump into our discussion group really fast, and this is our discussion group, guys. Today is an open discussion. That means that it's free to join and free to come in and talk to everybody. The link to our discussion group is in the description. It's in the QR code at the top left. I do want to go and talk about the China angle of the Operation Economic Outcast by Scott Bessent against the Islamic Republic. I want to zoom in on China because I think this is all about China. This economic isolation doesn't make any sense without being successful against China. China's trade with the Islamic Republic, right? So let me really quickly, right now, the economic war against the Islamic Republic comes down on how successful the White House is in making sure that China submits to this plan that Scott Bessent is enforcing right now. But let me stop talking. I want to jump into our group call. I can see there's already 15 people there. They're talking. So let me just jump right in.
On Talib, Elisa.
Hey, Armin.
Talib.
Hello. Hey, Armin, you and Alani and Sid were great today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Isn't she great? She's amazing, isn't she?
I know, she's awesome. Yeah. I meant to say that earlier. Sorry I didn't, Alani.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Guy was great too.
And Guy. I forgot Guy.
Yes, Guy was wonderful.
Yes. A lot of people in our YouTube chat are putting candles and saying R.I.P. For Dolly Parton.
Dolly.
Yes, Dolly.
Wait, Dolly Parton died? What?
Yes. So just wanted to mention that she died at 80, and a lot of people are saying. Amir, yeah, Amir is saying People are saying Elisa is awesome. Love her energy.
Aw.
People are saying a lot of that.
Oh my
So,
gosh. You guys are so sweet.
Also, so another thing is I just finished my segment with OAN. I think that went very well. So once if they send me the video, I'll post it on YouTube, so you guys could see and tell me how I did. But I think it was one of my best, but I'm not sure. I'll show you guys later. Yes, a lot of people are saying Elisa is great. Yeah, and sorry guys, sorry for anybody who's affected.
Wait, you're not just going to move past the fact that we lost Dolly Parton. That's an American icon. I can't believe this is real.
I didn't move past that. I just told you guys. I'm the one who told you. But
holy crap. That's so sad. I'm sorry. I'm sad.
Yes, I'm sorry. Anyways, we do have to go to our topic. Sid, are you modding?
I can mod.
Okay, thank you. It's open call today. Do you want to tell people how things work? And thank you, Sid. Do you want to tell people how things work here?
Ooh, okay, I'll do my best. So, this is open call. We have this is how we govern the discussion. If you want to comment on what people are talking about, the current topic, you put a 2 in the chat, just a 2. If you have a different topic you want to talk about, put a 1 and a short description of your topic, and then wait your turn. Keep your microphone closed until it's your turn to talk. Don't talk over other people. And also be careful about what you say. We are streaming live, and since we're streaming on YouTube, this is going to be broadcast everywhere, and it's going to be public record. If that makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to talk. That's okay, but just keep that in mind before you do, and keep in mind that we have to follow the terms of service of YouTube. So just be very, very conscientious of what you're saying. And with that, let's start the talk.
All right, so guys, I want to open the discussion with by continuing to discuss Operation Economic Outcast by the United States, led by Scott Bessent against this. Sorry guys, I'm going to quit Cloud Code so that you guys. Yes, I know I'm breaking up. I'm clear. I just closed Cloud Code so that doesn't happen again. Just let me know in the chat if my audio is good now. Okay. So guys, yes, I know my audio was cutting in and out. It's Cloud Code doing a lot of work in the background. I just shut it down. Right. Sorry about that. Okay. So thank you for telling me. So going back, Operation Economic Outcast led by Scott Bessent against the Islamic Republic. We're seeing a lot of signs within Iran that it's working very well. It's not fast enough, obviously. I was just on OAN. I give them the signs for why it's working, but I also mentioned that it's not enough. There's 2 major elements that are missing. One of them is arming the Iranian people under the leadership of Reza Pahlavi, and the second one is going in and killing everybody who's left among the regime leaders, right? Obviously, that's what's missing. But I do want to today, because everybody is talking about the effectiveness of Operation Economic Outcast against the Islamic Republic. So even though those 2 elements are missing, the economic blockade of the Islamic Republic is having significant impact, and much more than many people understand. But it could be even greater if what Scott Bessent announced actually gets enforced. And for that to get enforced, it's all about China. It's mostly about China. It's not going to be complete unless we can enforce this against China, and China is going to push back. So we have to look at what United States is actually, because it's one thing to announce things, it's another thing to enforce them. Even before all of these, there were already a lot of sanctions on the Islamic Republic, but United States looked away and wasn't enforcing a lot of them, especially under the Biden administration. So there's an announcement level, and then there's so we're at that phase right now. Then there's the phase of actually, engineering the sanctions and putting them in place, and then there's the phase of actually enforcing them. So these are sort of three. We're only at the announcement phase. We don't even know what the details of these sanctions are because they haven't been designed yet, right? And it's important for Americans, especially, to keep an eye on what's actually happening, to understand if what is being said is being delivered, right? So, and also how much, what can China do to respond to this, if anything, right? So really quickly, I prepared the details of this so that everybody knows what we're talking about. And I would appreciate twos in the chat if anybody wants to talk about this. And yes, the 5 by 5 of Amujef. Thank you for reminding us. That's what's missing. So this is only the economic warfare part of it. And as much as it's missing all the other things that Amujef reminds us about, this economic warfare, we want it to be at max level, right? So here are the things, right? So we have the refineries, the shipping fleets, and then the financial institutions. These are the three things you need to look at when it comes to focusing on China. So the bulk of the oil that is purchased by Chinese refineries, they are often called teapots, by the way. That's what you need to zoom in. And they're teapots. These are smaller, so-called independent Chinese refineries, and they have expertise in not just doing refining the oil, but also evading detection. And they rebrand the crude as Malaysian or Indonesian before importing it, right? So some of these have already been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury, but again, we have to see how aggressive United States is going to push forward for that. And then, so that's number one. Number two is the shadow shipping fleets. So this operation by Scott Bessent is targeting these broker companies, and they're all based in China. There's so much in China and Hong Kong, and there's so much based in the integration with the Islamic Republic is so much that some Iranian officials have completely moved to China and Hong Kong, and they have their offices there, and they're running these operations inside China, and they have moved there permanently. So Scott Bessent is trying to target them, right? And figure out and sanction them. And again, important secondary sanctions. A lot of people are like, well, didn't we already have secondary sanctions? Not like this. Nothing at all like this. And there is this national Iranian oil company and military link entities that the United States has found a connection with these refineries, even though, don't underestimate these refineries and these shipping fleets. They, as good as the United States is, these companies also have experts in trying to evade them. So it's not as easy as people think. Like, people are like, oh, United States has intelligence, so this is going to be really easy, beep, boop, boop, you press, and then all of a sudden they get sanctions. It's not that simple. If you actually go into the details, it's very complicated, right? And the third part is the financial institutions, right? The bigger Chinese banks, they try to avoid direct exposure because they have so much trade with US and US-linked companies. So the bigger banks try to evade dealing with the Islamic Republic, but they do indirectly deal with the Islamic Republic through smaller localized banks and intermediary networks that facilitate this trade, both outside the dollar system or through cryptocurrencies, stable coins, right? And Scott Bessent was specifically asked about this, and he said if they facilitate transactions and are part of the ecosystem that turns Iranian oil into money, into repression, they will be targeted. So this is one of the most aggressive. A lot of this might sound like same old for you guys, but this is actually some of the most aggressive pushes economic warfare by United States that we have ever seen. Like again, if you look at the analysts, they say that it's hard to predict what's going to happen because this is exactly what they say. They say because we're in uncharted territories. So the effectiveness of this operation is yet to be seen, but so far it's already producing a lot of results. So how the Chinese companies, they and China, the CCP itself are going to push back against this, obviously. So they have developed a cross-border interbank payment system. They have that, the CIPS. This was launched in 2012. So if anybody can push back, it's China. Because while the rest of the world relies on the SWIFT networks, it's mostly China that has an alternative system. And this is why China is so important to the Islamic Republic. It's not just because they buy their oil. It's not just because that. It's not just because they give them manpads and missile components and rocket fuel. It's also because China is the only way for the Islamic Republic to have access to a financial system that bypasses the American-led model, right? So that's why targeting China is the most important way to isolate the Islamic Republic, because no other country can facilitate what China can facilitate for the Islamic Republic, right? And so another way that, so this is what China will make available to the Islamic Republic. But another way Beijing will push back is that they actually have massive leverage over the global supply chain, especially on rare earth minerals. So they could punish the United States and the global economy if they feel the pressure. And for China, this is, for a lot of these Chinese companies, it's about profit. But for the CCP, this is not just about profit. For the CCP, it's about also the Islamic Republic surviving. Because Islamic Republic surviving has a lot of benefits to the CCP beyond the CCP having access to low-cost energy. The CCP pushing back against the United States keep the United States occupied, and the resources occupied, and allows China to move more easily in their neighborhood against Taiwan and their other interests without having to worry too much about the United States, as much as they would have if all of these resources were untied. So this is why it's so important for China to, even at the financial cost, to invest in keeping the Islamic Republic alive. So that's why their economic leverage that they have over their global supply chain is they might use it. They might use it even if financially it hurts them, because for them this is about survival, and it's not just economical, right? Survival against the United States. They also have dominance. They also could do tariffs, and sanction campaigns and all the other stuff right before the midterms, at a time where United States needs to show good economic numbers. So China could get very aggressive with this, and we don't know how aggressive they're going to get, but we have to see this. This is why it's important for United States to diversify its reliance when it comes to trade to other countries. This is why countries like Vietnam are so important, right? Like Vietnam is the model country for diversifying away from China. And India. Yes, China was saying India. Yes, yes, exactly. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let you guys to pick this up. Do we have any twos?
Yes, we have twos. The first is Jeff.
All very good points. With regards to Operation Economic D-Day, Armin's correct. It's not like before. There's a lot of different elements that differentiate it from what was done before. So the sanctions architecture is very much a maximum pressure on economic, and it's like beyond what economic theory did. It's looking to isolate the regime remnants, and it does so by choking the hard currency artery that the regime remnants is using vis-a-vis the oil regime. Well, the oil that the mullah regime remnant steals from the Iranian people and then sells on the to their patron states. Part and parcel of that, shadow fleet is under systematic pressure, right? So now they're looking, and it's sanctions with teeth from designating to oil seizure and asset forfeiture. So that's very much similar to something called Operation Sovereign Tide, written by yours truly, where he talked about having, I mean, that would be a much more beyond just economical. You'd be physically targeting and liberating the shadow fleet's oil tankers and then taking them to our ports. It does a couple of things coterminously. It denies those resources to the Mullah regime, now regime remnants, and it denies that oil to the Chinese Communist Party that is their patron and our primary pacing threat in the Far East. As far as what the Chinese it also goes after intermediary elements. So they're attacking the shadow banking system, right? The exchange houses and the financiers and the regime money movers, they're getting targeted, including some of the elements and means of how they move that money via cryptocurrency. So they're also denying the store of value. So particularly gold and precious metals are now directly under pressure. Like every single thing that these assholes are using to try and circumvent sanctions is directly being targeted with maximum pressure. Armin's also right when he talks about it has to do with the Chinese Communist Party. This is actually one of the things I mentioned when I did the presentation to 2 million Iranians almost 20 years ago with Amir Fakhavar. It was webcast. Sanctions, when you apply sanctions, you have to ensure that there's no available substitutes. So targeting the fleets is one of them. As far as the Chinese Communist Party, what are they doing? Armin touched on it. White labeling, right? This is a term that was used by Senator Rubio during his time in the Senate, very rightly so, where the Chinese Communist Party will use intermediary countries and or companies outside of China. They'll sell them their stuff, have them take their name off it, put their name on it to try and circumvent sanctions. This administration is, if you're involved in that and you're caught, you're getting hammered. So this is a very high pressure economic campaign against the Mullah regime and the Chinese Communist Party. I very much want them to do Operation Sovereign Tide in total on top of 5x5, because you're talking about 140 plus million barrels of oil, including draining those that are on Karg Island, not to steal it, to deny the Mullah regime any resources and the ability to use these things as a facilitative means to engage in ecological or environmental terrorism. Liberate it, provide it, then sell it to the United States' or our co-aligned allied ports, sell it on the free market with a discount regarding the operational costs, and then provide that money to His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi's headed up interim government after they're named as the official government in exile, because that allows the interim government resources while it denies the resources to the adversaries. Ultimately, if you conclude that with 5x5, those three lines of effort, the Mullah regime will be collapsed in as a regime from 5x5 in 120 hours, and the regime will be utterly collapsed and lose control of Iran, highest probability within 6 to 8 weeks. Why is that so important? Again, Armin's right about it. We're in the opening stages of a high-intensity world war. No doubt about it. Adversaries are coordinating their efforts. We have to take as many of the autocratic blocs as pieces off the board as possible and enable those that are our allies. And that includes the Iranian people. So eliminate the Mullah regime remnants and turn Iran that's occupied by a Mullah regime from an adversary to one of our best allies.
Thank you, Jeff. Alistair.
So Jeff actually kind of gave me a very good segue there with the beginning of like a high intensity world war, because my point was going to be on the CCP front of this economic operation. I think we're doing a lot of intelligence gathering and observation right now in China, not only on how the economic system works, but also I'll get into this in a bit, but the military and stuff like that. For the main reason is we're like right now we're not naming them by name and going blanket out, cutting off all like the banking systems, because, you know, if you want to figure out how a system like, if you want to expose like a secret system that's not supposed to be there, you don't break it, you poke at it and you get it to expose itself. You don't want to break it because then you don't know how it works, right? And you can't get everything in between. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're not kind of just going full out on China at the moment. We're trying to figure out how their economy works. What can we poke and prod to cause what problems in the event of a future high intensity war. And on the military front, I think we're also gathering a lot of intelligence on China on the military front, because after Venezuela and Operation Epic Fury with Iran, the Chinese just saw JADO in action and they're scared. Joint All Domain Operations. They just saw that in action and they are scared. And they definitely hit the drawing board back after they saw those operations in action. And I think right now we're kind of just, stepping back and letting them make their move, essentially.
Thank you, Alistair. Jose?
Okay. About a month ago, I told you all that I had a report out of China that the Chinese government was asking people to deposit money in banks because they would get interest on that money and increase their money. Well, I also told you that money disappeared within a week, and it went to another bank higher up in the chain, and then another and another. There's been no second report because the person that was put that report out there has disappeared, which is bad news for that person. Jeff will understand exactly what I mean by bad news. Okay. This has been going on for over a month, and it could be a response that they need cash in their system, because the people that are ending up with the cash is the Communist Party, CCP. And these people have put their life savings. Some of them were saving their yen or whatever their monetary situation is underneath their mattresses, in holes in their backyards that they covered up with planters and stuff. The way that the United States used to do it after the crash of the stock market crash, where no one trusted a bank for a long time after that. Okay. And they trusted their government. And they got robbed by their government. So it's, Bassett does need to find a way to control their banking system. But we also need to be able to witness and see that some of the money that they have in their system has been stolen from the Chinese people.
Thanks, Jose. Kare, you're next.
Okay, so it seems like right now the plan from the American side is most likely to let the kind of economic warfare against the Mullah regime run its course for the time being, if I'm understanding things correctly, for the next few weeks or months. What do we think about any potential military operation? Do you think it could happen before the midterms or after, or when is most probable? And when it comes to arming the Iranian people, I've always heard of that here as being quite a long process that would take several months with training and stuff. So what's basically the timeline that we're looking at is basically my question.
So that's a very good question. So right now, the United States is either not interested in military operations, or they have done an incredible job in making it seem like they're not interested in military operation. For the 5D chess people, I'm including that, okay? So, but with the available information that we have, it seemed like they're comfortable where they are, and they are they're noticing that with very little financial cost and with very little political cost, they're causing maximum damage to the Islamic Republic, right? Obviously, so from a U.S. perspective, that actually does make sense that what they're doing, right? For an Iranian perspective, it takes too long, and so many Iranian people are suffering, right? But the main three limitations are the three M's: munitions, markets, and midterm, right? And the thing is that the Islamic Republic is trying to bait Trump into military operations because the economic blockade is working too well, and as much as the Islamic Republic gets damaged during military operations, they feel like this is worse, and they need to cause some cost for United States for maintaining this economic blockade, or else they're not going to be able to survive this, right? So time-wise, it might actually take a lot longer. If this is what the only thing the United States does, it will take way longer than many people think. This is why I'm hoping that the United States goes with the 5x5 that Jeff is talking about, right? Because as we are moving in the right direction with this economic blockade, and it's having a huge impact on the Islamic Republic, but we're moving in the right direction, but slow. And it could, like, I don't want to say this, but it could take years. It could take many years if you're only focusing on this, right? So let me, if I remember, it still will make them will make them collapse. But if I remember correctly, for Saddam, this level of isolation took them 12 years. Is that correct? Like forgot the number, right? So yeah, so we only have one data point. It's really hard to guess this number, but without arming the Iranian people, without getting in and killing all of the regime people, this could take anything between 2 months to 10 years. And I know this is a very wide window, but anybody that gives you a specific answer is making stuff up. It's making stuff up, right? Yeah.
If I may, it sounds risky for it to potentially take that long, because I'm thinking if a Democrat were to get back into the White House, they would probably reverse everything, wouldn't they? And throw them alive.
So yeah, that's a huge danger. My depends on whether the sanctions are, their sanctions are at the executive branch level, right? So they're not from Congress, so they are not as sticky. So yeah, that's a huge issue, right? This is why it's very important to listen to Jeff and do the 5x5 and get this sped up, right? Because if you're only focusing on this, it will take way too long, and the Democrats might reverse it for sure. Yeah, 100%. But I think Jeff has a 2 in the chat, and I think he will be able to give more details in response when he gets to his turn. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Kari. Next up is Shauna.
Sorry, my husband's headset button. I just wanted to point out a couple of things when it talks just from Armin's monologue. We do have India. Vietnam, though, does remain our best ally in sort of moving away from China, largely because as much as I love India, as we kind of talked about this morning, there is conflict there sometimes in just cultural issues. I love India. I want India to do well. I think they have the ability to be an absolute powerhouse on the world stage, but there is cultural issues. We can offend each other's sensibilities at times. It just seems to be a thing that's hard. Vietnam, however, is increasingly pro-America. It's communist in name only, essentially, at this point. And they are a merit-based culture, just like we are. I had Vietnamese immigrants in my school, and they went like this one kid I knew went from barely speaking English the first year that he was there to being like the third in the class by the end of the second year that he was there. So they work incredibly hard. And then I also want to just give a kind of a brief point on Taiwan. That's something that we need to remember for talking about the CCP, is the CCP will argue a lot, just like Russia will say that Ukraine is Russia, the CCP will say, well, they're China. It's really important to remember, a lot of people don't know this, I didn't know this until I started researching it, Taiwan had an indigenous Taiwanese population there. And when the Han Chinese started to go in there, they went in a couple of different waves. One was in like the 1800s, and then there was a second wave because of the Communist Revolution. Both of those populations are heavily mixed with the indigenous population. So today, modern day Taiwan is its own ethnic group. I have cousins who are Taiwanese, they're literally both half Taiwanese and half Han Chinese, genetically speaking, ethnically speaking, or whatever. Taiwan is its own thing. So when we're talking about the CCP, when they try to say, any of them who try to say, well, Taiwan is just part of China, Taiwan is Chinese, no, they're literally not. They are literally their own ethnic group, but on a biological level, on top of a cultural one. So I just always want to point that out whenever we talk about Taiwan and the CCP, because it's something that I see people talk about, like, why do we care about Taiwan? Well, because they're a sovereign nation, they're an ally, but they're also an indigenous and mixed population. They're not Han Chinese. Literally, they're not. So thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you, Shauna. Eliani, you're next.
Hi, I just wanted to, I have a question about the sanctions, or the secondary sanctions. So I was just doing a little bit of research with Grok here, and it said that as far as restraint goes on major banks, the initial package hits smaller private intermediaries, logistics, and tech firms rather than major Chinese financial institutions. Officials have emphasized quiet diplomacy and defined timelines over immediate large-scale bank designations, reflecting the need to balance pressure on Iran against broader U.S.-China economic ties and global spillover risks. So that, so I wonder if maybe, Jeff, you could explain this better about as far as the U.S. and China economic entanglement and how that affects the secondary sanctions. If you could kind of give me like an idiot's guide to all those machinations and how that works.
Okay, so Jeff has a 2 in the chat. So when he gets to his, he will also cover Kare and Elisa at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Eliani. And perfect timing because Jeff is next.
There we go.
I will do my best, all in like 5 minutes. So I'll touch base on a couple of points, then I'm going to finish with answering Alyssa's question, but it's very important. With regards to the idea that we should delay action because we need to gain intelligence, well, one should always maximize intelligence prior to pulling the trigger. There comes a time when you cannot use intelligence gathering as a means to not implement decisive policy, especially when time compression dictates that delay is not desirable. Equally, while one needs to take into account competitive adaptation, whenever you use a capability, it's not neutral because your enemy learns the capability that you're using. Said issue cannot deter you from using the capability when it's needed to be used. Rather, especially if there's a time compression element to it, rather you need to use the capability in a manner that's decisive so there's no one left to adopt or learn. As far as like when Armin mentioned 5x5, he's also right. There's 3 issues there. Why the time critical and decisive like approach that is regarding the fall of the regime remnants facilitated by 5x5 is so important. One, you have divergent policy, political, and operational cycles and the challenges it poses in maintaining consistent national policy. Armin is very correct about that. time compression underwritten by the geopolitical and geostrategic environment. We have other things that are kicking off. So Chinese Communist Party becoming increasingly belligerent towards Taiwan, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state doing more and more stupid shit in the intermarium against NATO. I mean, like, you know, I can go on. I mean, those are two very big examples. And finally, this is both a moral and operational reason to minimize the cost to the Iranian people that have shown in no uncertain detail that they are not represented by the mullah regime and they are indeed our ally, unlike the mullah regime that's illegally occupied Iran since '79. As far as like arming the Iranian people, that's also true. We've talked about that. I ran a lecture series on how to do that legally. You're talking about easily 9 months of training if you wanted to do it right, from people who have no like training whatsoever. 87 months optimal. Where you know, and the cost would probably be about between $2 and $9 billion for 20,000 very highly trained, capable, lawful, unconventional combatants. Arming Iranian people, the vetting issue is there to be sure. It's still part and parcel of an overall comprehensive approach, along with Operation Sovereign Tide and recognizing His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi as the head of the official government exile. So it allows you to streamline a lot of those efforts. And on to the question that, you know, Alyssa asked, which is like, wow, there's like the CIA has swaths of people to do that. I'm going to do my best. So the Chinese Communist Party has spent 50 years, ever since the death of Mao and the creation of special economic zones, right in the 70s, and Hu Jintao and all the rest of them, in developing a very long-term economic strategy to spur foreign direct investment in China, with a particular focus on sectors that have a maximum amount of crossover and dual purpose technology, crossover between civilian and military research. The goal being twofold. One, to sit there and increase the velocity of money within China that they will then use to build out their relative comprehensive power, national power. That's a term the Chinese Communist Party coined on how to measure power. Two, to exacerbate technical diffusion from the post-industrial knowledge-based core, which it was and still is for the moment, the United States, to the Chinese Communist Party. And for 50 years that's gone on, and now we have $37 trillion of fixed physical capita that's invested in China. And so that's the challenge and that's something the Chinese Communist Party also uses as leverage to try and blunt, right, any response to any number of their increasingly belligerent actions, whether it's from a cyber warfare perspective, economic and industrial espionage perspective, or indeed just de facto motivating elements within the West, say people who are like the heads of corporations that invested in there, to white label and or act as a stand-in to push back against policies that would punish the Chinese Communist Party for that increasing belligerency. So what is it that we have to do? You definitely need to have a public-private partnership to expedite the delinking of the United States and or our allies from the Chinese Communist Party because of the conflict that's coming, that we're in the opening stages of. Part and parcel of that, hold on, part and parcel of that is you 3 stages, right? Optimally, you want to onshore to the United States for any number of issues. President Trump is very much doing that in any number of ways. Then you have regional sourcing. So that's like Canada, Mexico, people that are in our hemisphere. And finally, friendshoring, which is something that Armin and you correctly identified in Shauna with regards to like moving to in-region allies or people that are not aligned with China. So India, Vietnam, you know, South Korea, Japan. That's efforts that we have to do there. It's going to take a national, this is actually part of the report that I'm finishing up and I'll post it in school today as what needs to be done to do that, where you minimize the impact, the negative secondary and tertiary consequences of that delinking that the Chinese Communist Party is readily using to try and make it as painful as possible for us to punish them and or to try and insulate the regime remnants that Armin correctly identified that the Chi-Coms are using to try and tie us down so they get an easier shot at Taiwan.
Thank you, Jeff. Sam, you up?
Okay. Talking about trade with Vietnam, and today is also the 8th anniversary of the passing of Senator John McCain, who was also, by the way, a mentor to Lindsey Graham. I just wanted to quickly say, thanks, late Senator John McCain. As a veteran, he was key on fighting for reconciliation, pushing to end immediately all U.S. sanctions with the very country he once tried to force into capitulation and was held in captivity. Communist Vietnam, a nation where he eventually found the courage and compassion to return for diplomacy and normalization. He worked closely to mend wounds and build bridges with the Communist Party of Vietnam's General Secretary.
Oh, okay. So I just quickly want to say, first of all, that is that's very sweet, Samantha. I really appreciate you saying that. That is very, very sweet. I really do appreciate you saying that. I do wanted to also mention to you why I think Vietnam is a capitalist country. I know you disagree, but just wanted to go through the list of that, right? Yeah, but that was very sweet. I appreciate that. So, and so I agree with Shauna on Vietnam being a capitalist country, right? So first, Vietnam has a market economy. In 1986, Vietnam shifted from central planning to a market-driven economy where prices and production follow supply and demand. That's one. They have a dominant private sector. The vast majority of Vietnam's GDP, domestic business, and jobs are generated by privately owned enterprise, not the state. That's number two. Global free trade. Vietnam is a WTO member integrated into global capitalism through major free trade agreements like the CPTPP and EVFTA. Massive foreign direct investment. Multinationals like Samsung, Apple suppliers, and Intel-owned factories profit freely and drive the export economy. They have an active stock market. Vietnam operates stock exchange in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, where public shares and corporate bonds are traded openly. Wage labor and wealth accumulation. Individuals freely work for private wages, buy personal property, and accumulate private wealth without state caps. So this is something that you refer to. Land use rights. You say the government owns the land there, so that's the reason why you say it's a communist country. But the land use rights function as private property. So while the state technically owns the land, citizens hold long-term land use rights, LURs, that can be bought, sold, leased, inherited, and mortgaged like private real estate. So even the ownership of the land is symbolic. They made it so effectively, basically like a private ownership of the land. So that is basically, private ownership. And then state land ownership is common globally. So many non-communist countries such as Singapore, Hong Kong, and the UK via the Crown Land hold state or public land titles while operating as a hyper-capitalist hubs, right? An absence of core communist principles, Vietnam does not operate on collective worker ownership of the means of production or moneyless distribution. It runs on competitive, profit-driven markets. So for all those reasons, just because they have communist symbols, that doesn't make Vietnam a communist country. It's a very capitalistic country. That's what I wanted for you to know why we call Vietnam a capitalist country. And thank you, by the way, but still, again, that was very sweet. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, I'm closing the twos now. So we're just going to finish up these twos, and then we will, after that, move on to the next topic. So next up is Eliani.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw it back to Jeff, but just for everybody watching, I just want to make my question as clear as I can. I just had this mind-blowing realization that secondary sanctions would go to us, literally the US, because of our economic entanglement. And so there's this asterisk about how there's a timeline for the larger banks in China, whereas the smaller banks, like the sanctions go into effect immediately. So I'm asking Amu Jeff, how does that work? What does the timeline for that even look like?
Thank you, Eliani. Jeff, oh, sorry, you want to say, Armin?
No. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Jeff.
Obviously you touched on the key challenge. There is no way to minimize blowback because you've had like America and our allies addicted to the Chinese Communist Party's economic trap, right? That leverages cheap Chinese labor, no environmental laws, no intellectual property right laws. People still did the investment because they're going to make a short-term profit for too long. So there's going to be some pain. There's no doubt about it. The question is, how do you minimize that pain? That's in part and parcel of things me and others have been pushing for and writing about, policies on how to do that, including Gordon Chang and some others. To do that in the time critical and decisive manner necessary to prepare us for what's coming, you need a full mobilization of the United States. And that includes bringing online peripheral sources of labor, specifically non-violent criminals that should be given a option to be involved in workfare. So they would sign into this voluntarily into this program. They work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. They are paid a living wage, which actually is less than what we spend to keep them incarcerated. They get Sundays off. 75% of that pay is put into Treasury inflation protected security, which is centered around things like investment in blue collar chips here in America. In other words, you're investing in America. And when they get out, they have money to do things like buy a house. They're giving a trade skill. You'd use unions to trade them to do semi-skilled labor in onshoring all of those different industries, particularly the strategically relevant ones that have to be done as quick as possible because of the conflict that we're in that's going up. After they're done, they serve half the time that they were incarcerated for. When done, they get a full presidential and or governor pardon for what they committed, so that they are then readmitted. They are now re-entered into U.S. society. That's something that a lot of like more aggressive elements on crime don't agree with. The simple fact is we have certain things that got to get done in that time compression defined by the geopolitical and geostrategic environment. We don't have enough people to work there. So that's part of that. As far as like the financial, like that dual stage you're talking about, that's probably part and parcel of some of the reason why they're done in stages, even though it has to be done more aggressively, or I would, is because they're probably trying to minimize some of that damage that's being caused that the Chinese Communist Party is going to go out of its way to maximize. This actually leads into a response that I wanted to do with regards to Samantha, which I very much appreciate what you said about the late Senator John McCain. He was indeed a very decent person. The motive, though, regarding why he did that, the main motive regarding Senator McCain's rapprochement and or support of former President George Herbert Walker Bush's administration's roadmap of approachment to Vietnam, which centered around cooperation in POW and MIA accounting. I actually was in the unit that did that. I didn't deploy there. I knew people that did. Cambodia and remaining South Vietnamese officials in education camps in exchange, Washington would progressively normalize relations. And it said something quite beautiful about Senator McCain, which I wish I was able to ask him before he died, which is what was the secret he had, because these are people that tortured him. So one was, I would contend from the people I know around him, the main reason was geopolitical and geostrategic, specifically containing China. And I'll post some of the links in the articles that he wrote and or the interviews he had. The other one was Senator McCain was a professional soldier. And he definitely didn't like what happened to him. He hated it, and he was right to do so. He's tortured. That said, he wasn't a fanatic. I don't know how he did that. That was one of the things I wanted to ask him, Samantha, because I have a lot of hatred. It's hard to separate members of the Ummah from what Islamic fundamentalists did. I hate bin Laden for what he did. So on that, I don't have an answer on that part, the specifics of it. The main reason, though, was geopolitical and strategic and containing China. Well, the Chinese Communist Party.
Wow, that was really some testimony, Jeff. Thank you, everyone. It's a great discussion. And I believe we have super chats now.
Yes, we do have super chats. I do want to mention something though, because this is very important to me, and you might think like, why is this very important? Why are you keep talking about Vietnam, Armin? Is because because Vietnam is succeeding a lot, and communists are trying to, because they don't have good examples of communist society, they have no examples of communist societies working. They're desperately are trying to use Vietnam as an example of communism working, even though Vietnam is working because they're a capitalist society. And I know, Samantha, you keep saying this, and I know it's an emotionally hard thing for you to understand, to accept. But given how important it is for us not to let the people try to use Vietnam's win in capitalism as a win for communism, because communists are very bankrupt when it comes to examples of trying to sell communism, and we shouldn't let them have this. Because I saw Samantha put in the chat an excuse for why still Vietnam is communism, after I made it very clear, like with my explanation for why it's a very capitalistic country. She posted this. Samantha in the chat, she said, the government retained control over strategic, commanding heights of the economy, including banking, energy, and telecommunication. Samantha, that's also true about Singapore. That's also true about France. That's also true about Norway. I haven't seen anybody say Norway is a communist country. I haven't seen anybody say France is a communist country. I haven't seen anyone say Singapore is a communist country. And I don't know why you keep insisting that you know the definition of communism. You're an expert in communism, and you know that's not the definition of communism. You know a society that has broader market system, just because there's some government intervention, that doesn't make a communist country. You know that government intervention is not what makes a society communist. Communism requires the complete elimination of private capital, of ownership. You know that, right? You can't have markets, private capital, competition, a growing private sector, and the profit motive ruling over a society, and call it communism just because the government has control over certain institutions. You know the definition of communism, so I don't know why you keep insisting on it. And I said, I know yet you said those are the last twos. I do want to see, if you don't, would you allow Samantha just quickly respond to this, because this is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Go
Cool.
ahead, Sam.
Okay, short answers, Samantha.
So, so there's a difference between, what's it called? Private property and personal property. So personal property is something that like you don't make a profit off of, that you personally are using on like a regular basis, and is like essentially a movable object. So communist systems can allow for personal property. They don't allow for private property, but they can allow for personal property. So you can still have things like Louis Vuitton bags theoretically in a communist society, because it's like
so
Samantha,
based on your own definition, we have private property in Vietnam, not just personal property. You said private property is that something you can make profits of. So in Vietnam, you have private property. Then based on your own definition, the private sector is huge in Vietnam. Is mostly of the vast 90% of the economy, more than that, is the private sector that everybody is making profit out of. Then it's not personal property, that's private property. They have a stock market. Stock market is not personal property based on your own definition. That's private property. So based on your own definition, Vietnam is not a communist country, based on what you just said already over here. All right. So I'm going to go to, you're saying is communism, again, Samantha, this is getting ridiculous. In the chat, you're writing is communism with international trade. They had the private sector. It's not just about international trade. The government, they have private ownership. They have the stock market. The stock market in Vietnam is not about international trade. That's about not being a communistic country internally. You know this is coping. You know that. Anyway, super chats. Emil, thank you so much for the super chat saying, let's get this going. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Emil. Thank you so much for the super chat, for getting us started with the support. Appreciate you. And then we had followed up by Cappy. Amu Cappy. with a membership gift. Thank you so much, Amukapi. Thank you so much for supporting us, and also thank you for your service. Okay. Who's next?
Okay. Yeah. Eliani is next. She wants to talk about the CIA director visiting Russia.
Okay. Wait, we don't have audio. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, I forgot.
Yes.
I don't have a whole lot to pontificate on with this topic. I just saw this as soon as I opened X, and I was really excited about it. So this post says CIA Director John Ratcliffe on board U.S. Air Force C-17 that landed early Tuesday at Moscow's airport in order to attend several high-level meetings with Russian officials. They have a comment here that last time that a CIA director made an unannounced surprise visit to Moscow in late 2021 was when Director Burns traveled there to warn Russian leadership against launching an invasion of Ukraine. So this trip is concerning and a bit ominous. So I'm excited to hear what you all think is the point of this trip. What are they discussing? Could it be to do with the secondary sanctions with Operation Economic Outcast? Yeah, that's it.
So before we go to other people, I'm just saying, reading this, is saying this trip represents the first visit to the Russian capital by a CIA chief since November 2021. The primary agenda focused on issuing direct warnings over Russian mobilization plans and probing actions against NATO. Discussions addressed stalled diplomatic talks in Ukraine and Moscow's strategic alignment with the Iranian regime. So it might be about that. The delegation departed Moscow for Latvia after spending 8.5 hours on the ground. Okay, so Ukraine and Iran are the topics, but let's see what other people. Jeff, put it. Okay, great. Richard is going to talk to us about that, hopefully with no echo. But Jeff, also, if you have any inputs, let us know. But yeah, okay, Sid.
Yeah, I think this is a good old spy swap. If I don't know if people were watching Flight Tracker, whoever's watching Flight Tracker, it was a executive jet that flew in, followed by a C-17. It was a CIA director flying into Moscow for a few hours followed by a C-17 cargo plane. There was no cameras, no media, no nothing, and then flew back out to Latvia. So my guess is this is a good old little spy swap.
Interesting.
What's a spy swap? I'm not the only one who's wondering that, right?
Basically, we have Russian agents that we captured. They have American agents that they captured. Yada yada yada. We did this. It was a similar thing with with Brittany Grenier during Biden, but except we released essentially the God of War for a basketball player. But I think this is more of like we captured. So we have some of their agents in our custody. They have some of our agents in their custody. It's a good little show of good faith.
Cool. Interesting. Thank you, Alistair. Richard, you're up.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. No echo.
Fantastic. Yeah, so a couple things. This probably relates to the Russian interaction that Rubio had in Singapore at the last Geo Summit. Russia is apparently looking for something of an exit ramp in Ukraine, lets them save face. The concern, of course, is that they're just going to devote their war economy to propping up the mullahs in Iran. We had discussed this previously, but it would be really wrong to see the Ukraine and Iranian theaters as independent of each other, specifically with regard to how Russia's involved. They're very much intertwined and part of a larger, geopolitical conflict. So my concern, when I hear news like this, is if they can win too fast in Ukraine, that actually would not be good for the situation in Iran.
Thank you, Richard. Jeff.
Yeah, you mentioned the spy swap. It's like, again, we exchanged different personnel that we incarcerated. And I hated the fact that we actually swapped the merchant of death, who then fixed a lot of the supply chain issues some of my buddies who fought in Ukraine died to create for Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, for a self-hating, basketball player, to not use a more expletive term. It's also why I also warned about like having just people just willy-nilly going to Ukraine. I mean, not that we shouldn't support our Ukrainian allies. You just can't run in there. Hell, you talk like, what do you do anyway? That's another conversation. What do I think regarding that meeting? I think you guys touched on it. One was dealing with escalation control. It's probably highly plausible with regards to Ukraine and Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, not the least of which is Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state probing NATO, right? Not a good idea. Also, with regards to Putin's mobilization efforts, which illustrates he's getting ready to make a push potentially into NATO or NATO member states that are on the border, Baltic states, the rest of that. Prisoner negotiations, right? So we've been involved in discussions over Americans imprisoned in Russia. We specifically noted, or in the media was Stephen Hubbard, are among those still held. Stephen Hubbard, I think it's Stephen Hubbard, that are still held. And recent Russian releases make other arrangements kind of conceivable. Very much Putin's criminalized counterintelligence states supported the Mullah regime and or gray zone and hybrid red lines for us. Yeah, that's kind of where a lot of that's at. Nothing very bad about that. You should sit there and do all that you can to manage unintended escalation, even though we're in an escalation spiral regardless. Doesn't mean you shouldn't make the effort. So a lot of people, and never trying to like, well, what's the difference between that and Biden? Plenty. Right? I mean, Donald obliterated Nord Stream 2 in his first term. He initiated CATSA, which directly sanctioned Russian oligarchs and friends of Putin that was directly involved in humanitarian shit they were doing in Donbass and Donetsk. Right? He supported the European Defense Initiative, which was created by Obama, albeit not funded. Donald gave the most money to it up until like the middle of Biden's administration. So, there's a lot of differences between those administrations and what Donald's doing. Only because I know never Trumpers are almost assuredly going to zero in on it. I think Alistair also touched on a very key point with regards to spy swaps.
Thank you, Jeff. Eliani, you're next.
So here's my question, because I don't know if I buy the spy swap story, but let's just go with that. Why would the CIA director need to fly out to Moscow unannounced for a few hours for a spy swap?
Okay, so that's actually it. Jeff, you want to just chime in there?
So, that's one of any number of reasons why CIA Director Radcliffe went there. It's not the only reason, almost assuredly. If I remember correctly, I think it's reported in the news that the other issues that people mentioned, which is, you need to stop with your bullshit hybrid warfare against NATO. We're not going to let you roll over Latvia. We will respond. Stop supporting the Mullah regime remnants. We'll respond, and maybe your ships get taken out in the Caspian. If not by us, by others that don't like you. Two people can play that game. As far as like why they may have like a C-17 or have no cameras there, maybe because it's a sensitive issue. Maybe because you're trying to protect sources and methods. Maybe there's other things going on that I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying these are all things that kind of just immediately jump to my head with regards to that particular topic, because I didn't think about it until Alistair actually very aptly mentioned it. There's sometimes you want to do things on the down low because operational security dictates that you do it that way.
Thank you, Jeff. Jose.
Okay. I'm going to bring this to Cuba. I think the CIA has been doing a lot of negotiating when it comes to the unsavory types. Because in Cuba, the CIA is negotiating with the two people they think they can turn into the new Maduro. Okay? A colonel who I can't remember the name, and the Crab, one of Raul Castro's grandsons, who technically is actually considered by a lot of Cubans the person who's actually running Cuba. Okay, and the corporation that is Gaesa. He's also the one that just spent 3 billion euros to buy a mansion in Madrid. So it looks like the CIA has turned into one of the negotiators when it comes to the unsavory types. Just a thought based on what's happening in Cuba.
Thank you, Jose. And so that is it for the twos. Are there super chats, Armin?
No, there are no super chats. So let's go to the next topic.
Okay. The next topic is also Jose. He wants to talk about the U.S. versus Canada part 2.
Okay. Today in the news, I found out that the premier of Ottawa, a guy by the last name of Ford, was saying, well, we can play tough too with the United States. They walked out, which was not true. Canada walked out of the negotiations. They want to stick us. We're going to stick them with everything we can. And he also told the premier of Alberta, Canada, to shut off oil to the United States. She said, no, I will not do so. I am not going to sacrifice a couple thousand jobs in the oil industry in order to start a trade war with the United States. Here's the funny part. Yesterday, right after I told you guys about what was happening in the trade war there, I came across an article that stated that Carney was telling the world news media trade war, and that the United States started it when Canada walked out. And it turns out the whole thing is a ploy to destabilize the American midterms and help the Democrats out in order to get Trump impeached or something like that there, which tied into Alistair, Al Green out of Texas, who has been kicked out of Congress and won't be there come January 6th when the rest of them get inaugurated, to indict Trump on another, good God, I didn't even want to say it. I can't think of the word. Sid, can you help me out?
Impeachment? You're talking about impeachment?
Impeachment, yeah. So I just thought it was interesting that all that smokescreen was just to lie to the world and say that Trump walked away with negotiations when it was the Canadian team that walked away. And I also think it's interesting that Ford would mention shutting off oil to the United States when the taxes that and the fees that they make from selling oil to the United States runs the socialist system in Canada. Without it, all of the Quebec's free housing, all the health care, everything, bye-bye, gone. And Ford was silly enough to try to tell her to shut it off. So that's just an update on what's happening in between your country of residence, Harmon, and the United States. And it's going to get interesting. It's going to get interesting.
Thank you, Jose. Richard wants to say something.
Yeah. Jose, I just wanted to say, with all due respect, if any of that surprises you in terms of Carney's tactics, then I think you just don't know Carney. but I'd be very surprised if they're not back in negotiations in the next couple of weeks. There is no for Canada to win this. There's no other market for them to go to. Basically, this is a lot of grandstanding election year stuff. Practically speaking, it's like playing chicken between a VW Bug and a Mack truck. You don't want to be driving the Bug.
I did not fall for that trap. I knew that was coming.
Thank you, Richard. Eliana, you're next.
I was actually going to say more or less what Richard said. Like, Canada's economy is so tiny compared to us that it's like having a shootout between, a little air rifle and a 50 cal. It's like, yeah, like the air rifle, like it's still gonna hurt, but it's not gonna do the damage that the 50 cal is gonna do.
Okay, Alistair.
Yeah. Our biggest leverage in this with these trade deals is not necessarily like our economic like power definitely is something to do with it. It's our consumer. It's how much we consume. That's mainly our leverage. America is the United States is 1/3, I believe, of global consumption of good. Not like, I don't know if it's total goods, but it's like a lot of like the clothes, the cars, like the stuff like that. And that's where we get most of our leverage from. And kind of the analogy I use is like you have like a store and like three customers, right? Or you have like a few stores and three customers. The customers can go to any other store, but the store, once they start losing customers, they go out of business. And that's kind of what it's like. They can't lose America as a store. So that's our leverage in these trade negotiations. And I think that's what Trump's trying to, exploit. Even though I disagree with most of it, with most of the trade war, I think that's what Trump's trying to do.
Can I actually comment on this? Because I don't know how many Americans know how big of a deal that is. The American citizens' purchasing power is a significant reason why United States is a superpower, and how much the whole world wants to sell to Americans. Like in almost every other country, the business model of most companies is, how do we sell to Americans, right? And this is what China doesn't work on, right? The Chinese, for example, they work on government investments, exports, but they don't. If you look at their GDP, they don't work on lifting up their people and improving their purchasing power. And that's what the United States has. And the United States has that. And people think that, oh, that's nice. Okay, people can purchase. They have higher level of purchasing power. But that is a force. That is a weapon. That gives you leverage in a way that so many other, like, people, when you talk about a country's power, people think of their military, right? Like, oh, you have, the greatest Navy, the greatest Air Force. They don't understand that just average Americans having high purchasing power, how much that makes the entire world wants to submit to the American model, because they want access to that. And this is what liberty gets you, by the way, right? This is what liberty gets you. Liberty gets you prosperity. Prosperity gets you purchasing power, and purchasing power gets you the whole world wanting to sell to you. Hence liberty politics, by the way. Anyways.
Thank you. Up next is Eliani.
Armin, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it absolutely drives me crazy, like how ungrateful Americans are. Like, we are so sheltered from true hardship, from true disaster. Now, that doesn't mean that like bad things don't still happen to people. Yes, bad things happen to people. Being an American doesn't insulate you from getting hurt, from bad things happening. Like, I'm not saying any of that, but in terms of like affluence, in terms of like the privileges that we have on an economic level, financially speaking, Our poor people need to be on Ozempic. Everywhere else in the world, poor people are skinny and withering away to nothing. And our poor people who live in Section 8 housing, who live in double wide trailers, who are on food stamps, these motherfuckers need Ozempic. That's how rich America is. Like, that's insane. And it's like, and that's like 70% of America is too fat. Our poor people are too fat. And they have iPhones. Poor people on food stamps have like the latest iPhone, the same iPhone that Elon Musk has, the first trillionaire in the entire world. That's how rich we are. And nobody fucking appreciates that. Like, a little perspective would be nice from all these preachy liberals who want to screech and cry and bitch all the time. You have no idea how good you have it. No fucking idea how good you have it.
Ah, that was great. Somebody should clip that.
Thanks to Leonie. Alistair.
This is part of the reason why I get very mad at Vance when he goes out there and says he wants to, make the American dollar not the world reserve currency and stuff like that, and the world currency, is because our dollar being strong and our dollar being the world's currency and us having the purchasing power is what gives us mainly the economic power that we have. And, he's kind of just pushing this, I call it like a post-liberal economic thing, where it's kind of like somewhat capitalist, somewhat social. It's like a weird mix of everything that's not really going to work in the long run. It's a populist. It's more of a populist approach to economics, even more so than I think than socialism and communism.
Yeah, thank you, Alistair. I would just add to that, yes, I believe things can be better, and I want them to be better. But I want people to also recognize how much worse things can be. And so, a lot of the policy prescriptions that are floating around and that are gaining popularity are extremely similar to like absolutely dysfunctional, disastrous states with millions of dead, tons of starvation, war, violence, people fleeing. Right. So we have to consider that too. And this is my frustration with a lot of the discourse and a lot of the ideas being circulated right now is that I'm not convinced that they're not going to lead to disaster. Okay. Thanks again, Alistair. Homan, you're next.
Wait, Sid. I just wanted to, one thing you said is very important. I want to just quickly touch on it. I think a lot of people think that when we say be grateful for what you have in the United States, it means that we're content and we think that his job is over and there's don't ask, don't complain, don't criticize, don't ask for more. We're not saying that. We're actually saying the opposite. We're saying to make things better, you have to see what worked. If you're not grateful for what you have, that means that you don't know what produced what you have. If you want to improve things, you have to go and look at what got you here so that you can continue doing the things that work. We're not saying this is good enough, stop, don't get better. We're saying that if you notice what worked, you're going to do better in progressing farther. All right.
Yes, absolutely. We absolutely want things to be a lot better, and we are seeking that. Okay, Homan, you're next.
Something to that. CIA directors went to Russia. Our intelligence agency, they are talking to each other many times.
Homan, that was the previous topic.
Oh, so Armin, actually, I didn't realize that Homan wanted to speak on this topic, and I didn't. So can we give him a chance?
Sure. Okay, let's do that.
Go ahead, Homan.
It's okay. I forgot it. Sorry. I joined the next topic. Sorry.
Okay.
No, you could say. Just give us 30 seconds of what you wanted to say. It's my fault.
It's okay. I'll do it next time. It's
It's okay. Let's move on. Let's move on. Sid, it's okay. What's the next?
Okay, so do we have super chats?
We don't have super chats, but we have a comment better than a super chat, which is about Elisa, saying, "I like this girl more and more." So, so I just wanted to highlight that. So it was in the middle of your rant. Yes. So okay. All right.
Awesome. Okay. Yes. So the next topic is Tarun, who wants to know, Armin, when will you talk about Hinduism, Buddhism, caste discrimination, etc.? Go ahead, Tarun.
All right. Tarun, go ahead.
Okay, so can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I don't have a. All right, so I just want to start this off, Armin, by saying I was recently watching some of your old videos, before the whole revolution thing. Some of your oldest videos from like 2021, 2022 about all the Hindutva things. You were talking about sexism and Hinduism. That was one of my favorite ones, like the one where you recited Ashhadu anna ilaha illallah, and for some reason no one has clipped that yet. So I just wanted to say that those are really good videos. And then I just popped into your recent stream you just did. Some dude was talking here about the Hindu caste system. He was comparing it to what was happening in Iran. I don't know what he was talking about there, but that kind of reminded me.
Can you just make your point, because you've been speaking for 30 seconds and I haven't heard any points yet.
All right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that. So is there ever going to be a time? When are you going to just talk about Hinduism and Buddhism?
Well, it could be
again,
right now. If
again?
you actually start with a question or a point, it could be right now. But so far, I
don't want to do. I don't want to do that right now. I want to
Do you have?
maybe hop on.
Do you have a question about Hinduism and Buddhism, or do you have a comment about Hinduism and Buddhism?
Well, no. My only question is, when are you going to do it again? And if you do, can I join in and talk a little bit about that stuff?
I will only do it if somebody asks me about them, this was your opportunity to do that, and you didn't do it.
No, not here. I mean, like an actual live stream or something again.
I'm not going to do a live stream on Hinduism and and Buddhism unless somebody here asks me about it. This is a live stream, and you could have asked me about it, and that would be the topic. But we're just going in circles right now. I'm not going to do dedicated.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Given that you are not asking me any questions, I will just tell you what I think about Hinduism and Buddhism right now. Okay. So this is my evolved thinking on this and all of this, right? So the way I look at religions as an atheist is I try to separate I categorize it into two different parts, and one is the actual belief, and the other one is the symbolism, the rituals, and the traditions, right? And for most religions, what I've noticed is that if you just take away the belief itself, which I don't believe to be true, I could appreciate the rituals, the symbols, the tradition, the community aspect of it, without the belief system, right? For the belief system of all religions, I don't consider them to be helpful because I think that they do not match objective reality. And because they do not match objective reality, they misdirect people. But separate from the belief system, the rituals, the legends, the history, the enjoyment of the myths and all of the stories, and all the excuses people have to come together and celebrate something and communicate and connect with each other, and meditate through what they call prayer and everything. All of that is beautiful and needed, but it's the belief system itself that misdirects people. So that's one category separation. I do believe Buddhism and Hinduism also, the belief system misdirects people, but the rituals and the tradition and the symbols is something that is value in there. But then when it comes to go on.
I mean, I would personally say that you can't just look at a like for personally, I would ask you what you would think about somebody who thinks about like the epics and legends from like Greek mythology and Hinduism and Norse sagas and or even the Arthurian legends, who believe that these things are historical or happened, but not exactly the way that they're portrayed, like the Trojan War, where I believe that it actually happened, or the Mahabharata War, but they added some mythological fantasy stuff to bring in the tale or to explain certain things, but the actual event wars were historical and certain things were historical, but these are not fully the truth. Like if I said that, what
So
would you say to me?
I would say we're getting into too much detail. The general point is that if it represents reality, and people believe in it, then good. If it doesn't represent reality and people believe in it, that usually that has a cost associated with people believing in things that are not true. Okay, there's a cost associated with people believing in things that are not true. So that's why I separate the belief system compared to just enjoying the arts, symbols, enjoying the stories as legends and myths. I separate that. Then we could go into a lot of arguments and looking at the evidence and to see what's historical and what isn't. But the principle applies regardless of what's true and what's not. Believing in facts makes a society progress faster. Believing in falsehoods slows that down. It's a simple principle. But then, even when it comes to believing in falsehoods, to me, even though all religions are teaching something that is not true, like the description of objective reality doesn't match objective reality, and there's a cost associated with that. I do think that we have to pick our battles. There are many things that I think people believe in that are not true, but the cost associated with it is by far so far away from the main ideas that are harming society that it doesn't the return on investment for the resources and the time that you spent on attacking them from my perspective, at least from where I'm standing, doesn't make any sense, right? So in my opinion, that for example, in a world that we're dealing with Islam, communism, the woke right and the woke left, me going after people who believe in palm reading doesn't produce, like, so for example, I think palm reading is ridiculous and doesn't make any sense, and it's not helpful, and obviously believing in something that is false has some costs associated with it. But I'm not going to go dedicate my time and resources and the attention that I could gather to go and try to fight against palm reading, right? So if I'm not going to do that, then I'm not going to do that. I think that's why I'm not going to do that with my disagreements with Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Christianity. I'm not going to go. I still disagree with them, but I don't think it's worth spending time and energy on them. I think that in a world that we're dealing with Islam, communism, the woke left and the woke right, we have to pick our battles, and also we need to unite with all the with the Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, to fight against this main evil that we're dealing with. That is basically the enemies of civilization. All of these other ideas that I disagree with, I just disagree with them. I don't see them at war with civilization itself.
Okay, but my point is like if you see like one of these epics or scriptures or legends, if like it's not just about the belief that they're real, like you can say that even if they're not, you don't believe that they're real, but you still celebrate them otherwise. But if they have like a story where the heroes are not exactly good or the gods are not exactly good, or maybe the villains are better, like you like in Ramayana, you've shown a lot of times that you like the bad guys more than good guys. Like in an epic like that, or a scripture like Manusmriti or Quran, like don't you think sometimes we should talk about the reverse perspectives in case a certain epic or legend isn't like seeming morally accurate to you? The heroes or the gods don't seem that good, or the villains or the demons don't seem that evil. Then even if people believe in this stuff, but they don't believe in this stuff, but they celebrate the culture otherwise, what would you think about that?
I don't see Hindus following these. I see Hindus looking at their myths as just stories. I don't see Hindus using their gods as a role model for how to be the way that Muslims, for example, treat Muhammad as a role model to follow. Okay, so I don't think, like, as much as I look at some of these stories and I think like, okay, this is bad. Like, like this is I don't. It doesn't matter as much to me, because Hindus are not like following what Ram did to figure out exactly how to live their lives. Right? They're not doing that. They're treating all of these stories as just legends to enjoy, and they're treating Hinduism more of a spiritual thing, and they're just going through the motions with them. It is it's mostly Muslims who are looking at their scripture and trying to do all their best to use it as a model. I mean, you could just see the effects. Like, I don't even need to make this argument, right? You could just see the difference between Pakistan and India when it comes to moral standards. Anyways, I see other people are waiting to get in on the conversation, so I need to stop talking. But again, if you want to go fight that fight, go fight that fight. I just don't think that it's worth my time, unless you ask me.
Okay. I
Let's
think
move on.
I'll have to go now. I'll probably see you guys in like the live chat of the live about this. So I guess goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh.
Thank you, Tarun. You sound
Okay,
very
thanks,
disappointed.
Tarun.
He sounds.
Okay.
I've never heard anybody sound more disappointed. But thank you, Tarun.
Okay,
No, I'm
thanks,
not
Tarun.
disappointed. I'm not
Okay, it's
disappointed.
okay. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, Tarun. See you soon.
It's just night
We'll
for
see you
me,
again.
so I can't really talk too loud.
All right.
It's night for me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good night.
Okay. Thanks, Tarun. Next up is Richard.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, Armin, since your answer to that one touched on tribalism, I wonder if I could just circle back quickly to something you had said yesterday just before you got off. Quick question if you have time. So you had mentioned the experiment with the monkeys and the toddlers in terms of opening the boxes and following the motions, to get the treat in the box. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a companion experiment. It's the ladder and sprinkler experiment. They have a room full of monkeys. Basically, there's a banana or something good on top of the ladder, and every time one of the monkeys tries to climb the ladder, the sprinkler sprays all the monkeys with cold water. So eventually they learn to stop all the monkeys from getting off on the ladder. And what they did is they rotated out over time all the monkeys in the room to where nobody in the room was originally there when the sprinklers first fired, but they all still attacked the monkeys who tried to go on the ladder because it's a group protection mentality. Basically, it's a way to protect the group, basically punish the black sheep, and it's sort of this. And so what I wanted to say yesterday was sort of the punishing of the black sheep and the conformity as a survival mechanism is not unique to humans. Yep. It's just the humans are the best at it, and that's one of the reasons we evolved to the level we're at.
Yes, it's not unique with humans. It's just the strongest in humans. That's why the greatest pain that we experience as humans is the pain of rejection, the pain of shame and rejection. Shame is like internal control mechanism. Rejection is external control mechanism, right? Rejected by your tribe, or you just basically punishing yourself for doing something wrong. And a lot of people think like, oh, conformity, that's a bad thing. Tribalism, that's a bad thing. We wouldn't be where we are if we didn't have conformity and tribalism. Like that desire to be seen by others and gain their approval is the reason why we have civilization, where we work as a group rather than individuals in such an effective way because we want to be approved by others. Like, if you notice that if your basic needs are met, like if you have food, shelter, basic like food more than food security, if you have shelter and you have clothes and some level of safety, then more than the vast majority of the things that you do per day is for the sake of approval of others. And some people think like, oh, that's so negative. That's like, no, that like approval for others. That means maybe your daughter, your wife, your parents, your coworkers, your boss, right? But think about it, like the clothes you wear, the money you make, the house you have, everything you do. Like if you think about it deeply, the humans are motivated by approval of other humans. Almost everything we do is motivated by approval of other humans, and that's not a bad thing. That's why we are so much in control of our of our environment is because we work as a very, like, a human society works as an organism that it seems like it has a mind of its own because of these basic desires that we have, and it's a mind of its own beyond, like, when we talk about the wisdom of a crowd of the crowd, people think that we're talking about the aggregate of every individual's wisdom, and that's not at all what we're talking about. With very basic rules on each human, you get what is it called, an emergent property that acts in a way that you would not be able to explain by just the simple basic rules. Like, it's kind of like an ant colony. If you look at every single individual ant, you're not going to see the wisdom of the ant colony in it. Like, if every single ant operates by very, very simple rules, but then if you look at the ant colony, the combination of those rules leads to something that looks so wise that no ant will ever be able to comprehend or understand itself. But it's as if it's a different living thing with a mind separate from the ants themselves. And that's how human society is. We have these shame mechanism rewards. So we get humans more than other animals get rewarded based on social punishment and reward system, right? So other animals are thinking mostly economically in terms of sex, food, and fear, and survival and stuff like that. But it's humans that are so much motivated based on their connections with other humans, because this living thing that is operating is not every individual human. This living thing that is the evolution is not humans as individuals. The evolution is tribe versus tribe. And the tribe that operates the best is the tribe that survives the most. And for the tribe to survive, there needs to be cooperation and a certain amount of conformity, but not full conformity. There needs to be mutation. Just like in one living being, we have mutations. There needs to be black sheep that rebel to experiment with new methods. And it's beautiful. This whole process is beautiful. But anyways, I should stop talking because I could talk about this for hours. Anyways. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Eliana, you next.
Yes, Armin, I too could speak about this for hours. There was something that you said earlier about believing in objective reality, believing in what's true, and how there are consequences for believing in something that is definitely not true. And I love that you made that point, because it ties into how I kind of accepted my belief, my faith, accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. How did I get there? Because I actually spent a really long time kind of resisting and fighting it. So there's a few things I want to say about it. One is my personal experience with the Holy Spirit, with Jesus Christ. The Bible says that, you should always have an answer ready for when someone asks you, like, why do you believe? So that would be my first answer. And it's not an answer that's designed to win an argument or to convince you of anything. I'm just telling you what I've experienced. And many other people have had that same experience too. So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing would be that not only have I had a personal experience with Jesus Christ, but across human history, recorded history, across human cultures, just about every culture that we are aware of has developed some type of epistemology or theology, some type of worship in the spiritual, some type of a pantheon of gods, or a single, like, high God, Father God, whatever, right? So what that indicates to me is that there is this mechanism inside of human beings where we are constantly seeking out something greater than ourselves. And I interpret that as a feature, not a bug. When it's cross-cultural, when it's something that, like, it's not it's a universal human experience, I feel like that's a signal that's worth paying attention to. And then the third thing that kind of led me towards accepting Jesus Christ and arriving to Christianity as my faith is I spent a lot of time contemplating, how did we get here? How did the world get here? This universe, like, how do you explain all of it? Because if you do the math, the odds of the universe, like with the Big Bang and everything, right? The events that happen, the sequence of events, the chain reactions, if you were to trace it going back to from zero to now, the chances of that series of events being duplicated is so minuscule that it requires an extraordinary amount of faith, certainly far more faith to believe that we just ended up here by an act of chance. It takes more faith to believe in that than it does to believe in a divine creator that exists outside of time, space, and matter, in my opinion. So and then I would also bring it back to how with my personal experience with the Holy Spirit, with the fact that so many cultures across history have had some type of experience with seeking God or faith. There the answer to those questions are something that a purely materialistic answer, a scientific answer, cannot satisfy, right? Because a biologist can describe what a human is. A biologist can tell me about, the muscular skeletal structure, the neurosystem, the cardial system. You can tell me all of those things, but a biologist cannot tell me what a person is for. So you can tell me what I'm made of, but you can't tell me why I'm here or what I'm for or what I'm meant to do. That's something that's not purely grounded in materialism or in science. Science can't answer that question, right? At least not satisfactorily to me.
Elisa, I need to be able to respond. You brought up 6 points, and do you want me to respond to all of them really quickly?
Sorry, I was trying to find a good place to wrap it up, but I just kept on thinking of more stuff, and yeah.
Right. So just really quickly, so for you say that throughout history people had gods. Actually, for humans, we have been here on Earth for 300,000 years, and we had gods for around 10,000 years. We had other things that resemble spirituality and religion, but godless spirituality. So for most of our time on Earth, we didn't have gods, right? Also, but we do have a desire and a need, a universal desire and a need to believe in something greater than ourselves. That is true. And there's a biological utility to have that desire. So there's an evolutionary purpose for why we have that has improved our survival rates to believe in that. So, but the need does exist for sure, but the need for such a thing does not prove the existence of God, right? When you talk about odds, you say the odds of us being here with all of the things that happened that made us be here are very, very low. The issue with that argument is that if anything else had happened, the odds of that would also be very low. Like anything, so this is one of the many things that has happened. But if something else happened, anything that happens, the odds of that would be very low, right? So, for example, if you win the lottery, you might think like, oh my God, this is how could this possibly happen to me? This is a 1 in a million chance. Yeah, but it had to happen to somebody, right? So if this is not like to you personally observing as a person who has won, this seems impossible, right? But for us looking out in, this is actually not at all shocking because it has to happen to somebody, right? So only when you look at from the Big Bang to now, everything happening to us looks like impossible to have happened because it happened to us, right? But if anything else happened and we weren't here, then it would have happened to someone else and they would be shocked for why this happened to them, even though this is extraordinarily unlikely. But overall, something had to happen. And if anything that had happened would have been this low in chance. But something with very low odds eventually had to happen, right? So there's that. And also you say like this couldn't have been an act of chance. This is an argument I never understand because people assume that without God, the only other alternative is for everything to happen by chance. We have that is not the alternative. There could be many good reasons for why things have happened without chance, but also without God, right? If things are happening based on certain rules and logic, for us to get to a place, then you're not people who are saying that they don't believe in God are not necessarily saying that the only alternative to that is everything happening by chance. And then you say purely material explanations cannot explain things. But they can explain things to you, right? Just because you cannot understand purely material explanation, that doesn't mean that purely material explanations do not exist. And then you also say,
I have to clarify that one point real
no.
quick, real quick. I said about purpose, human purpose,
I was gonna
specifically on that. Why am
I was going to get to that if you give me a few seconds. They say, then you ask like material explanations or scientific explanations cannot tell me my purpose, right? It cannot tell me what my purpose is. That comes with an assumption that you have to explain that there is a purpose, a pre-given purpose, right? Because maybe the purpose that we have are self-made purposes. It's not a given purpose. Maybe like you make an assumption, you say like this material perspective cannot tell me what my purpose is, but you assume that there is an inherent purpose within the fabric of the universe that has to be discovered. But from a material perspective, maybe there is no internal inherent purpose, and the source of purpose is an intelligent mind. And if there is no fundamental intelligent mind within the fabric of the universe, and intelligence comes from functioning brains, and we humans are the source of intelligence, then we are the arbiters of purpose. Then maybe we create purpose. Purpose is not something that is given to us from higher up, from the heavens, or from the nature itself, from the essence, from the fabric of the universe. Maybe we create purpose. We are the creators of purpose for our own lives. And in my opinion, that is a lot more beautiful. Because if we create purpose, we're doing an amazing job. And if we create purpose, then we have a choice to what that purpose is. And my purpose and your purpose would be different. If purpose is something that is given to us from nature or from God, then we are all our goal and our life is predetermined to be in one direction, and it all looks the same. But if we are the arbiters of purpose, if we decide what the purpose is, then we all have purposes based on our own unique individual characteristics. And my purpose fits me, and your purpose fits you. And it's your challenge to go find a meaningful purpose for you and create a meaningful purpose for you. And I think that's actually beautiful.
Here.
Right.
Okay.
I love that response, Armin. I love that. Thank you. And I enjoy having conversations like this. And I never have these conversations in the pursuit of trying to win a debate or change minds. I just enjoy sharing my experience and hearing other people's perspectives. So thank you.
And I enjoy hearing it. And I enjoy the fact that when I hear it from you, I don't see it as people think like, I don't see it as an attack on my view. And you don't hear my expression of my view as me attacking your view. I like it that what I like about this is that this is seen as me sharing my perspective and you sharing your perspective. And instead of trying to defeat each other, we're trying to understand each other. And we're trying to appreciate each other's understanding of the world. That's what I like about it.
Thank you, Armin and Elienu. Next is Kat.
Yeah, I was really suffering. It's like it gives me those early 2000s and late 90s discussions, which I was like, I went through it so much and I cannot hear it anymore. People like talking about, belief and miracles and stuff. I feel like throwing up. Nothing personal, of course. Simply because I see it today as much like I understand that, in my opinion, it's not about that. It's more, I have a more wider view right now. I don't know how to explain it. It's weird, but it sits much better in my brain. Like some beliefs, it doesn't matter if they're based on reality or not, as long as they're helpful. And mostly you see that the helpful ideas were preserved. That's by the nature of it, of course. And it depends on the case, but also another view that I have that I didn't know actually is I can only speak to Judaism. That's what I know. It brought some social and governmental, like how to run a society. It brought some ideas that were pretty strong, pretty crazy. Like in the oldest days, like who are the gods? The kings were the gods at some point, right? So I don't know if it was first in Judaism, okay, but I know that in Judaism there was someone above the king. Like the king could be judged. The king was like, oh no, you have God above. So at this point, when you get into my brain and you see my point of view, saying is God real or not, it's not the point, you know. And more other stuff, like even like on basic levels, like people hear in the Ten Commandments about respecting your mother and father. I don't know how it was translated to Hebrew. In Hebrew, to English, in Hebrew, it's like simply respect, like give the word a meaning. And people think that it's for children, which it doesn't make sense because the rest are not for children, the rest of the Ten Commandments. I saw an idea that said that it was
last one. I have 2 more minutes and we have a super chat. So.
Okay, so I'll just finish this point. I saw an idea that said that it's supposed to be, no, you need to take care of your parents when they're old and not productive. And like, you know, it was also connected to inheritance of land. Never mind. But it's like, it has deeper layers than is it true or not. That's my point. Thank you. I respect everyone. And Judaism is only right, of course.
Yes, and Kat, I just want to point out that with listening to what you just said, it was very, very painful, and I wanted to puke, just like you said, right? So, and that was very hard to listen to, and it was very painful. So, and also me listening to Elisa, that was actually very beautiful. Okay, just to be fair. Okay, I enjoyed listening to her. All right, so I just have to. Do we have a? I don't think we have a super chat. Do we? Do we have any twos more? Like, do we 30 seconds maybe?
Yes. We have 2 more. One is Sam. She wants me to read. This is exactly why we don't need capitalism. There is enough shame in not being helpful enough that we don't need to also financially punish people. And one last one is Homan. He wanted to chime in on this. And
wait. Okay, let me respond to that. First of all, if you want to see true shame, Sam, look at communist societies, right? Samantha, you know this. You've experienced the most amount of shame in your life among communists, so you should know more than anyone else that is not a feature of capitalism. That's a feature of communism. You actually admitted that at one point, okay? Because capitalism works based on rewarding. Communism works based on punishing. And because if you don't have incentives for people to work, if you don't, because for a society to produce, you need incentives. So you either have incentives by rewarding people, or you have incentives by punishing people. So capitalism rewards people. Communism, because it wants to treat everybody like equal, but people still have to produce, and you can't change human nature. People are not going to produce if you don't actually create an incentives. Then it has to rely on punishment, and because it relies on punishment, it has to lean into shaming. So even if you hate shaming, then you have to lean into capitalism. All right. So next person, 30 seconds only.
Okay, Homan, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to say to everybody, if I tell you to go and kill somebody, you will use your brain and you don't do it. But if I tell you, you believe in this God and the God say, go and kill that one, you are going to do that because you believe in that God. that's a problem with the religion and theocracy. And Armin says that some of it is not worth fighting with, but some of them are. So that's just wanted to add to that.
Thank you, Holman. Good points. Okay, Armin, you said we have a super chat.
We have 4. So I mean, 3 support and 1 comment I want to highlight. 10 joules from PJ Farok, I think. Thank you so much for the super chat. And then we have Tarun saying, thank you, Tarun, for the super chat, saying, I accept that talking about other religions is not that important, but Hindutva and casteism are still at large. Yeah, I agree with that. You and Susanna used to blast them. You cannot just go veteran now. We still do need you. Okay, Tarun, I really do appreciate you saying that. And I think that we will talk about that. If you're talking about casteism and Hindutva, not just Hinduism in general. And I do agree with you on that. We can't just willy-nilly talk about it. We probably are going to talk about it once it becomes important. It comes up on the news. Okay, when it becomes a big topic. And yes, so when that happens, we will talk about it. I appreciate you saying that. GodMade.us is saying, Holy Spirit speaks, and that's how I knew about Iranians being killed. Otherwise, I would have never found Tusi or your podcast. But I appreciate you saying that. I mean, obviously, as an atheist, I don't believe in that. But the way I see it is that I think I give the credit to you. Like, to me, I think, like, I don't want to give the credit to some spiritual entity that I have no evidence of it existing. To me, when you come here and support us, I want to give the full credit to your sense of empathy and your desire to help other human beings. So to me, I don't want to share your humanity with spiritual beings that I don't know if they exist or I haven't seen any evidence of them existing. I want to give the full credits to humanity and your humanity here, especially. That's what I do as an atheist. But I appreciate you, and I appreciate whatever reasons that you have for you being here and supporting us. At the end of the day, you're here and you're supporting the Iranian people at the time of their need, and the result is what matters to me at the end. And you're here, and that matters. Whether you're correct about the reason why you're here, or whether I'm correct for the reason why you're here, the point is that you are here, and that matters more than why you're here, in my opinion, right? And thank you for the support. Amir also was saying, I agree until the point you say I have a mind. It has a mind of its own. Armin, religious people will use it as an excuse for God. I do think that if I wanted to be religious, the closest thing to a God to me is a nation, because I believe in humanity, and I believe in when humanity works in societies and they work with each other towards a greater goal, that does create a mind of its own. And if God is a higher power that has higher intelligence, that survives each one of us, that is achieving a bigger goal than each individual person, then to me the closest thing that resembles that is the nation. And I think that's why patriotism, to me, is the greatest alternative to religion. But to each their own, right? And Terun, thank you so much for the super chat saying, fine, as long as Armin, who made an entire stream about how sexist Hinduism is to the point people spammed you and called you a Muslim, is not lost. I'm still there, buddy. Don't worry. And I love Hindus, and I love I do want to remind everybody that when that was happening, and the whole world seems to be for people who don't know, I have 10 police reports against me in India. Our case has been brought up in the High Court of India and the High Court of New Delhi, and we have had that's a whole other thing that we have had a long time ago. But a lot of people think because of that I'm anti-Hindu. So whenever this happens, I do want to remind people that in the worst times, and under the most amount of pressure I had been in my life, it was many Hindus came to my aid and supported me, and supported my freedom of expression against criticizing whatever I wanted. And I will never forget that, including people from Hindutva. Including people from Hindutva came into my support. So just wanted to make sure that people don't think I'm anti-Hindu, because I will never forget that. All right, guys, I need to go. I'm already very late. And we have a special guest today. Love you guys. This was a fascinating discussion. Hopefully we can have more of these discussions in the future. And guys, on YouTube, we have an important guest coming in half an hour. And so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification. Don't miss our stream in half an hour. And people in our group, I'll see you guys same time tomorrow. And until then, I'm Israel Chai, Slava Ukraine, Cuba Libre, Taiwan GIO, Long Live America, Javicha, Payende, Iran. Mwah.
Happy Amin.
Okay.